What's going on, Warriors? It's your boy, Lionheart, and what's going on? I'm doing good. I hope you guys are doing good. Oh, we're about to get into this one, and man, is this one a crazy one? I can't believe it. There I am, chilling out, and all of a sudden, go on social media, and I see some weird post, man, from Akane Studio saying that they're closing. What? Akane Studio Austin. That's a bit random. Do a little bit of more looking into it, and I see another post. And I'm like, what is going on? Redfall closing down studio. And then I look a little bit more. Microsoft Studios, they're closing down 4 studios. Akane Austin, the studio that made, you're not going to believe this, they made Dishonored, Prey, and Redfall. I don't even know what to say. This is crazy to me. This is madness. Gone. That's not all. Tango Gameworks, studio that made Evil Within. That game is godlike. And Hi-Fi Rush, which, if correct me if I'm wrong, last year, didn't they? Microsoft was coming out everywhere saying the game is like a massive success. It's such an incredible game. Everyone loves the game. The analytics for that game of people playing the game that have downloaded the game is off the charts. Anything that we ever imagined that it would be. About less than 2 years later, gone in the wind. What is going on, man? And then there was like another studio. 2 studios called Alpha Dog Studios and Roundhouse Games, which I don't know those studios, if I'm being absolutely honest. I've never heard of that studio. Don't know what games that they've made, yeah? But in total, 4 studios gone, just like that. This is crazy to me, man. Mismanagement. Not supporting the video game developers. And you know what it is, right? This is what happens when you don't take care of your staff. You don't nurture the talent that you have in your video game studios. It takes years, even decades, to hone the craft of making video games, of being an expert in your field in any job. It takes years. And then these video game owners and CEOs and managers that come in, these are people that don't know anything about video gamers. They don't have any people skills whatsoever. A lot of these studios you see, Activision Blizzard, EA, Take-Two Interactive, all these shithouse companies, they are owned by people that have got nothing to do with gaming. They got no business being in gaming at all whatsoever. They are ex-politicians, they are lawyers, they are hedge funders, they are traders, they're not gamers. They literally see an audience, a community, gamers that love what they love, and they will put their money where their passions are, and they see an opportunity to make money. So they buy their way into these companies, and then they hire all their little friends, right, to come into this organization and just monopolize it. Go to these developers. So we see that you make this video game. Can you explain what video games are to us? Then developers explain to them, okay, no problem. So you can sell to these people, millions of people, and these people will buy your product and they'll be investing in your product. Okay. So let's say, for example, you sell this one product, give them 35% of that product, and then take away the rest. So we're going to give them 35. we're going to take 65, we're going to chop that up, and then we're going to give that to them periodically. Would they buy into that? Yeah, if it's a good enough game, and, you know, most of them are already suckered in. They're like, you know, vampires that need blood, right? And, you know, we get them addicted to the blood, and then we just sell them more blood. Great. Let's do that then. And then they see how much millions that they can make from these video games. And then these developers have got no choice but to adhere to these people because they are their bosses now. And then what happens? Arcane Austin, gone. That made Redfall, Dishonored, Prey. They made Prey. Prey is godlike. Dishonored is godlike. Fortunately, Arcane Leon, they also made Deathloop. They made Prey as well, and Dishonored. Yeah, but they're kind of like separate now. They're in Leon, and they're working on the Blade game. Yeah, they're safe. Yeah, developer put on social media that they're safe, but you're saying like, stop using us, right, for your clickbait to try to like boast up the video game community and like lie to them and make empty promises and promise them the world when nothing is set in stone yet. Stop using us. So he did put like out a statement like that. Yeah, Tango games work. Like just the other day, like there was like some cool developer woman that was working with Shinji Mikami and Ikumi something, right? And she left earlier because I think she said she was like burnt out, and then she was just exhausted, and then like just her creativeness was being stifled. When it was just Shinji Mikami owning Tango Gameworks, it wasn't that. But after they got acquired by Bethesda, it just wasn't fun anymore. She wasn't enjoying it. She's been worked to the bone. There was no creative freedom. She left. She's got her own studio now called Unseen. I hope maybe Shinji Mikami joins her or something, and they make their own studio. They can like create and be in Unseen together or something, because those two were like a dream team, right? And this is what I'm trying to say, man. Microsoft they don't get it. Just the other day, not other day, but there was a time when they had Insomniac Games and they made a game called Sunset Overdrive. That game was godlike. Unbelievable. Microsoft, there was kind of like chatter or talk about maybe Microsoft buying them. Microsoft declined to buy them, even though they were up for sale. Yeah. Sony were like, we'll buy them. Microsoft, PlayStation went and bought them. Look now, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Ratchet and Clank. They're making all these games. Microsoft could have had that. But instead, what did they do? They pissed it away. They blew it. The other day, they had a game that they're working on a game with Platinum Games. This was a while ago. This was like, I think it was like during the Xbox One days, or maybe Xbox 360. I don't know, something like that. But it was a game called Scalebound. Now, you have an incredibly talented studio like Platinum Games, and you have Microsoft with seemingly infinite pockets and a talented team led by a talented generational talent like Hideki Kamiya, and you can't even nail it. That game fell through, got cancelled. Unbelievable. And another thing this reminds me of, another blown opportunity. And this what it reminds me of is there was a time where Capcom were making a game called Street Fighter Cross Tekken. And Capcom went to Microsoft and they said, we're thinking of putting guest characters in our video game. What would you say if we were to have, say, Master Chief, or Master Chief from Halo, or Marcus Phoenix from Gears of War, because Gears of War was popular at that time, yeah? Microsoft, nope, categorically no, not interested. You have an entire franchise or community of fighting game players that could be introduced to your video game. All you have to do is let this company just use the likeness of your character in a fighting game that would be cool, that everybody be interested in. You're like, no, another missed opportunity, gone. These guys, they just keep catching L's all over the place. I just don't understand. Nothing but F's and L's being dropped all over the place by this company. They simply can't make a good decision. And then guess who pays for it? Arcane Austin, Tango Gameworks, Alpha Dog Studios, Roundhouse Games. Not the CEOs. They're not going to pay for it. No. It's the developers that are going to pay for it. There's no accountability from the people like Phil Spencer that are actually in charge of calling the shots. They're the ones that are in charge of financing, management, taking care of the employees, making sure the employees have got everything that they need. What is this, man? And I say, this reminds me of just an oversaturation and mismanagement of studios. They bought Activision Blizzard for $75.4 billion. And they bought ZeniMax and Bethesda, I think it's ZeniMax, something like that, yeah. And Bethesda Studios for $7.5 billion. 7.5 billion in total. If you think about it, 75.4 billion and then 7.5 billion, 82.9 billion. Maths is not my strong point, yeah. $82.9 billion. If you think about it, they bought for those two studios, and then there's other studios that they bought, but from before and then after. So the consolidation, if you think about it, is over $100 billion they spent on the studios. Mismanaged. They're leaving these studios to just go about their own thing. Where's your deep pockets to finance these studios? Make sure that they're getting the best job possible done. They had a game, Bethesda. I don't even know what it's called. Whatever, man. Skyfall, or I don't even care. I don't even care what it's called. Yeah, they no. I don't know. They released like a game or something like that. It's supposed to be like a revolutionary game that was going to change everything from Bethesda. An absolute shit show, and just horrible, terrible. You think to yourself, what is all this? You promised the world. You promised the absolute sun and the moon and the stars, and you deliver nothing. Just waves against the rocks. And that's all they do. They just keep promising all these things and nothing happens. Where's your Gears of War? Gears of War came out in 2019. Yeah, I think 2019. 5 years. Nothing. Crickets. It's just Gears of War 5, I feel, was their best Gears of War. To this day, nothing. They haven't capitalized on anything of Gears of War. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm so confused by this company. Like, how can you have a company with such deep pockets and they're just so bad? They just mismanage everything. They just can't seem to just make a good video game. And that's all you need to do. You just need to make a good video game. That's all, man. Capcom had an issue like this a couple of years ago. They were facing bankruptcy. And they're like, you know what? This is our last shot. We have to just sit down and just make a good video game. No bullshit, just a good video game. They make, and it all starts when they make, I think it was Resident Evil 7. Yeah, or it might have been Monster Hunter World. I can't remember which one came first, right? But they made either of those two games, yeah? What are those games? They ain't got any nonsensical microtransactions or any type of cut content or whatever. It's a full game. Amazing game, good graphics, good gameplay loop, amazing gameplay, wonderful music, good story, content coming into the game. When DLC is released, it is worthwhile content that is meaningful and enjoyable. Just non-stop. And then they release Resident Evil 8 and Village and Devil May Cry 5. And then you think to yourself, what is going on? And if you look at all those games, it's just quality, 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 quality. Now Capcom is like, to me personally, I think Capcom is the #1 video game developer in the world. Because other than Street Fighter 6, which is garbage, and that's due to like bad decision making, yeah, of monetization. The one game in the last, I want to say, maybe 7 years that they've made, as 7-8 years that they've made, that is not good is Street Fighter 6. And what is a lot of that game? Monetization and nonsense and just horrible business decisions. Anything other than that is a W. Big, fat, massive W in big neon lights in the sky. You look at all these other companies like Activision Blizzard. L's, F's, flush it in the toilet, throw it in the bin, absolute garbage. You've lost 4 studios. How do you screw it up, man? Look at a game like Redfall. What is that? What is that? How do you make it? How does a game become so bad? I mean, don't kind of surprise me too much because it is Bethesda, to be honest with you. And Bethesda, they're like the Lord God kings of using the most relic old technology and monetizing a passionate fan base, giving them a subpar game, but because the gamers that have bought into Bethesda are so in love with Bethesda that it's literally like Bethesda promised the world, give them breadcrumbs, still makes millions, and they still just walk away with millions. People complain, but they deal with it, but it's all good. This is a brand new IP, Redfall. It couldn't survive that. And then other companies, other studios have to foot the bill. Not the studios, not the executives, not the head people in charge like Phil Spencer. None of those people face accountability, just these studios. And you've got other companies like Bracer Group, that they have 12,000 employees. They have over 100 studios. And they own studios like THQ Nordic, Gearbox Software, Crystal Dynamics. They bought Crystal Dynamics from Square Enix last year for like 450 million or something like that. Deep Silver. They even own publishing companies that make comics and graphic novels and light novels. Dark Horse, Dark Horse Comics. They publish Berserk. This Bracer Group, they closed down 3 studios. Last year, I think it was. And they closed down 3 studios. There was a game that they made, Saints Row. That studio got closed down. Because they own that studio. And they tried to reboot it, make it into a hipster game. The game completely tanked. I think like 80 people bought that game in total. Studio's gone. No more Saints Row, forever and ever. Gone, obliterated. Because it's these people that are not gamers. They just see business opportunities. As I said, these people that are buying into these video games and studios that we love for all these years, they've got no business in video gaming. They are bankers, they are lawyers, they are executives from other companies, they are businessmen and women, they are ex-politicians, advisors. That's who they are, hedge funders, traders. And they've bought into video games, and that's why they don't know how to treat video game developers. Video game developers are people that have to be taken care of. Their talents have to be nurtured, not brassed out and worked to the bone. How long do you think you can hemorrhage video game talent? How long do you think you can hemorrhage and abuse and disrespect these video game developers? That's why you got developers like Hideaki Itsuno, that made Dragon's Dogma, and with his team, Devil May Cry 5. That's why they can make such incredible games, and they're so talented, because they've been doing this for over 20 years. That's the reason that they're celebrated by people on social media, because we realize that talented studio developers that love video gaming, and they are so talented and good at it, they are a fading breed, because the studio game executives just abuse them, brass them out, make them do the most stupid shit, and then throw them away because they don't get it. They don't understand people. All they understand is money and numbers and statistics. Look what happens. When that happens, you get Leon Arcane Austin, Tango Gameworks Studios, gone. Unbelievable, bro. And you know who's next on the chopping block? Namco Bandai, if they're not careful. Yes, I said it. If you want to keep making, like, Tekken 7 was one of your best-selling console games. Why? What was that game? It was a good fighting game that had incredible story, fantastic visuals, it had combos and a passionate fan base, and it had a lot of content in it. If I'm being honest with you, I think the Tekken Bowl in that game was actually better than the fighting game aspect of that game, right? Even though, I paid for the fighting games and stuff like that. The Tekken Bowling was godlike in that game. Yeah, it had like lots of customization. Didn't have as much customization as the past Tekken games, but it still had a lot of customization. It was just a solid game. They were ruining it, midway through it with all their pay-to-win characters and stuff like that. But because the game as a whole was so good, you could overlook that because the game itself was amazing. And then they got drunk with the success of that game, think they're better than the community, and then they release a game, dupe us, trick us by selling us a game for £60, and then 2 months later, into the game cycle, they completely transformed the game with content that they cut from the game, putting it in a battle pass, turning it into a free-to-play live service game. The game had, I think, a maximum of 39,000 concurrent players. Within a few months of the game's release, the game is now looking at like less than 9,000 people concurrently playing that game. As of 2024, in May 2024. I think that game came out in, I don't know when that game Tekken came out. I think it came out in January, end of January or February, something like that. Just a couple months later, 3-4 months later, the game has got less than 9,000 people playing because the game is not fun. You do microtransactions and monetization, and then you disrespect the actual community. I don't feel any empathy for the developers because of the way they talk, of the way they carry on, because of their decision making, because you can see that they think that they're superior, and they are going down the same path as these other developers. So they're next on the chopping block because Namco Bandai, they don't make most of their money from console gaming. They make their money from their mobile gaming. Their I'm a Slime, Isekai Memories, their Dragon Ball games, their anime games, their One Piece games, and licensing, because they bought like a lot of anime licenses. Yeah. That's where they make their money. They don't make their money from video gaming. Yeah. So they better be careful as well. Yeah. And it's just unfortunate, man. It's just really sad that you have the video game industry in such a state right now. It's just crazy to me. And then you got these studios closing down, man. And this is on top of, as I said before, you had Bracer Group, I think it was like 1,300 game developers gone, 3 studios gone. You know, and then you've seen it all over the place. Like lots of people in lots of studios in video gaming just are being sold or closed down. Crystal Dynamics got sold to Bracer Group, you know, and just crazy stuff like that. You know, Gearbox got sold to Take-Two Interactive. They're the people that made Borderlands, man. And Borderlands is another game. That game it could have been great. But they just bad decision making. They refused to evolve. You had a game like Borderlands 2 that was a godlike game. In its time, it was incredible. Borderlands 3 came out and it was literally a carbon copy of Borderlands 2 with a garbage story, with an irritating character. You killed off and disrespected characters that made your last game, right? It doesn't make any sense. Your game was built on the backs of certain characters and a storyline, and then you make a new game and then you just disrespect those original characters. It's like when they made like the Terminator movie. Yeah, I can't remember. They made like a new Terminator, and then literally within the first 1 minute of the movie, they killed John Connor. Completely disrespect Terminator 2. And Terminator 1, Terminator 2, disrespected, gone. This is why I say when you make it, video games are made by these, and decisions are made by people that have got no business in video gaming. You get this nonsense. And now the video game industry is just imploding. It's imploding, man. Makes me sad. And I just hope video gaming, these developers, they just see it. And these executives realize that you got to be better. You got to treat these developers better. You got to give them more time. You got to manage them better. You got to be kinder to them. You got to appreciate them more and give them the resources they need to make good video games, man. Because when you do that, you get games like Spider-Man, like Devil May Cry 5, you know, like Tales of Arise. You get these type of video games when you treat your developers right. You give them the resources they need, and you don't brass them out, and you don't promise the world. You don't try to act and dress like a rock star and promise the best album when you haven't even signed a good rock star to your label. You haven't even finished the album yet or a single yet, but you're promising this, that, and the other. That's what this is the equivalent of. You promised the world, but you haven't even nailed down the details yet. Implosion. So yeah, Warriors, that was my unfiltered disappointment, information, news about Microsoft closing down 4 studios, and then me going off on Bracer Group, yeah, for their bullshit in video game industry. And Namco Bandai, if they're not careful, they're next. This is, they're looking at their future if they don't sort it out. If they don't sort it out, they're facing implosion as well. Do not disrespect gamers. Do not treat gamers like they are ATM machines. Warriors, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you. And yeah, catch you next one, and be safe. Laters.